What do you want the world to know about Syd Barrett?
You know, he was a charming, ebullient, talented friend, and I miss him.
Amid the explosion of British music in the late 1960s, Syd Barrett emerged like a sleepwalker under the stage lights. His hair tousled, his gaze distant, his fingers gliding over the strings to create sounds the world had never heard before. He didn't just found Pink Floyd. He breathed its soul into existence, transforming psychedelic rock from an underground experiment into a cultural phenomenon. In just a few short years, Barrett built a surreal musical universe, where lyrics painted vivid pictures, where the guitar defied every convention, and where he opened the door for an entire generation of artists. But that brilliance burned out with cruel swiftness. LSD, the crushing weight of fame, and fractures within his own mind pulled Barrett away from the stage, leaving behind a silence that stretched for more than 3 decades. From a dazzling star of swinging London to an anonymous man quietly cycling the streets of Cambridge, Syd Barrett's journey was one of both triumph and tragedy, and the question still lingers to this day. Was he a victim of his own glory, or did he choose to walk away from the summit in search of a final, elusive peace? Early life. Syd Barrett, born Roger Keith Barrett on January 6, 1946 in Cambridge, England, grew up in a family that was both intellectual and artistic. His father, Dr. Max Barrett, was a respected pathologist in the medical community, known for his disciplined lifestyle, logical mind, and dedication to research. His mother, Winifred Barrett, carried the softer spirit of an art lover, encouraging her children to paint, play music, read, and freely express their ideas. These contrasting influences, one grounded in reason, the other in emotion, quietly laid the foundation for Barrett's unique personality. A keen observer with an imagination without limits. From an early age, Barrett would spend hours at his drawing table, creating fantastical, vividly colored paintings. By the age of 8, he had learned a few basic guitar chords and quickly began experimenting with unconventional sounds, changing strings, tapping the guitar body, or using foreign objects to press the frets. He also immersed himself in fairy tales, surrealist poetry, and the works of painters like Salvador Dali, all of which would later become the raw material for Pink Floyd's lyrics and visual style. Yet his childhood was not untouched by loss. In December 1961, when Barrett was just 15, his father died of cancer, a devastating blow that took away his strongest source of stability. This loss drove him inward, but it also pushed him toward art and music as a form of self-healing. The guitar became his steadfast companion, a channel through which he could pour unspoken thoughts and emotions into sound. Around the age of 14 or 15, Barrett earned the nickname Syd from friends in the local music scene, and it quickly replaced his given name in all artistic endeavors. At school, he stood out not only for his musical ability, but also for his eccentric style and his fondness for breaking the unspoken rules of teenage life at the time. Throughout his teenage years, Barrett played in various school bands, experimenting with genres ranging from blues and rock and roll to folk, and began writing his first original songs. These works were unlike the pop music of the day, not tales of teenage romance, but fictional narratives, bizarre characters, and dreamlike imagery, all deeply influenced by literature, painting, and his own rich inner world. In retrospect, Barrett's formative years contained all the ingredients for an artist destined to stand apart. A solid intellectual foundation, a creative environment that encouraged freedom, a formative loss that left a deep mark on his psyche, and a youth spent in relentless experimentation. It was the intersection of reason and imagination, discipline and freedom, pain and aspiration that nurtured the mad diamond who would shake the world of music just a few years later. Early career. In 1964, at the age of 18, Syd Barrett left Cambridge for London to study at Camberwell College of Arts, a liberal arts environment where he pursued painting while immersing himself more deeply in contemporary music and the underground cultural life of the capital. London in the mid-1960s was alive with the swinging London movement, where fashion, art, and music fused into an unstoppable wave of creativity. Barrett was quickly swept into it, playing small gigs and befriending young musicians, painters, and poets who shared his vision. In 1965, Barrett accepted an invitation to join the band of his old Cambridge friend, Roger Waters. At the time, the group was called T-Set and mostly played cover songs at student parties. But Barrett had no interest in mere imitation. He began introducing his own compositions, filled with unusual melodies, unconventional rhythms, and surreal, image-rich lyrics. Realizing the band needed a distinctive identity, Barrett fused the names of two of his favorite blues musicians, Pink Anderson and Floyd Council, to create the Pink Floyd sound, later shortened to Pink Floyd. From 1966 onward, under Barrett's creative leadership, Pink Floyd became a rising name in London's psychedelic club scene, performing at venues like the UFO Club and the Roundhouse. Their music was unlike anything audiences had heard before. Barrett's guitar employed unique slide techniques drenched in echo and reverb effects, while his lyrics told fantastical stories of gnomes, the cosmos, and dream worlds. In 1967, Pink Floyd signed with EMI and began recording their debut album, The Piper, at the Gates of Dawn, at Abbey Road Studios, with Barrett as the creative leader, writing or co-writing most of the tracks. The album became a fully realized psychedelic soundscape, innocent yet surreal, daring in its structures and sound effects. Released in August 1967, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn made an immediate impact, placing Pink Floyd at the forefront of the British psychedelic rock wave. At this point, Syd Barrett was only at the dawn of his career, yet he had already defined nearly the entire artistic identity of Pink Floyd, from its sound and lyrics to its visual style. He was not just a musician, but a storyteller, a painter using music to sketch his dreams. And yet, just as every door to glory was opening, the first cracks in Barrett's journey began to appear. Career success. When The Piper at the Gates of Dawn was released in August 1967, it instantly propelled Pink Floyd from a club band to a name recognized across Britain. The album climbed to number 1, 6 on the UK albums chart, and remained there for over 15 weeks. An impressive feat for a debut. Melody Maker critic Chris Welch described it as a musical star map, and hailed Barrett as the man brave enough to lead rock and roll into another dimension. Nearly the entire album, opening with the space-bound radio chatter of Astronomy Domine, the sharp guitar riffs of Lucifer Sam, and the fairy tale storytelling of the Gnome, bore Barrett's stamp. Beyond writing the songs and lyrics, he also shaped the band's aesthetic. From the album cover concept to stage lighting palettes and performance style. Earlier that year, in March 1967, Pink Floyd had released their debut single, Arnold Lane, a song about a man who steals women's underwear. Though banned by some radio stations for its unusual subject matter, it still reached number 1, 20 in the UK. By June, See Emily Play became their breakout hit, peaking at number 6 on the UK singles chart. Barrett later revealed he wrote it after a strange dream, a testament to his ability to turn subconscious imagery into catchy music. That same year, Pink Floyd became a headlining act at the UFO Club and the Roundhouse, where they pioneered immersive light shows. Lasers, abstract films, and synchronized lighting effects accompanied the music, an idea Barrett championed. A UFO Club sound technician once recalled, "Syd wanted every guitar note to have its own color. If he slid the note, the lights turned blue. If he hit a low chord, the stage would flicker red. It wasn't regular rock, it was visual art." The press soon dubbed Barrett the new face of swinging London. Fashion magazines like Vogue and Town published photos of him in patterned shirts and velvet trousers, his eyes distant and dreamlike. Journalist Nick Kent later described him as a fairy tale prince who had wandered into the modern world. Barrett's music stood out not only for its lyrics, but also for his guitar technique. He often used slide, sometimes a cigarette lighter or dinner knife, to produce unusual gliding tones, pairing them with echo, reverb, and tape loops to expand the music space. These experiments directly influenced Pink Floyd's later sonic evolution, even after Barrett was no longer part of the band. But the shadows had begun to creep in. A relentless touring schedule and the pressure to create drove Barrett deeper into LSD use. At a U.S. show in November 1967, he stood motionless through an entire song, not playing a single chord. On the TV program American Bandstand, he refused to mime, only mouthing words and staring into the void, leaving the audience bewildered. By late 1967, Barrett released Jug Band Blues, dark and sardonic, with the line, "And I'm wondering who could be writing this song," a cryptic farewell of sorts. In early 1968, the band brought in Barrett's old friend David Gilmour to help out. At first, the idea was to keep Barrett on as a non-performing songwriter. But within weeks, it became clear he could no longer perform or compose reliably. The decisive moment came on the way to a gig. The band sat in the van, and Roger Waters asked, "Shall we pick up Syd?" Someone replied, "Let's not bother." The van kept driving. No one said another word. That was how Pink Floyd closed its most dazzling chapter, and how Barrett lost his stage less than 3 years after reaching the pinnacle. Turmoil and shadows. After leaving Pink Floyd in early 1968, Syd Barrett's life entered a chapter steeped in controversy, rumor, and unanswered questions. Many believed he suffered from schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, though neither his family nor doctors ever confirmed this publicly. David Gilmour once said, "I think Syd had problems to begin with, and LSD just accelerated the process." It remains difficult to separate cause from effect, as Barrett faced the crushing weight of fame, an exhausting tour schedule, and near-daily LSD use between 1966 and 1968. Friends recalled incidents such as him secretly spiking others' tea with LSD, calling it a joke to help them open their minds. The decision to remove Barrett from the band became a lasting wound among music fans. The moment when the group sat in the van and someone asked, "Shall we pick up Syd?" only to hear, "Let's not bother," entered rock folklore. Some argue Pink Floyd abandoned him to protect their reputation and keep the band moving. Others see it as an unavoidable choice when every performance with Barrett was a gamble. Roger Waters admitted, "We tried, but every time we went on stage with Syd, it was a trial." In the years after leaving the band, Barrett's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He once shaved his head and eyebrows, painted his entire apartment a single color, or smashed his guitar into pieces on a sudden whim. Some days he would sit silently for hours, then suddenly burst into laughter. In his relationships, rumors suggested he had been controlling or even violent toward girlfriends, though no concrete evidence ever surfaced, and his family consistently refused to comment. Perhaps the most haunting moment came in 1975, when Pink Floyd was recording Wish You Were Here, an album largely dedicated to Barrett. A heavy-set bald man entered the studio, and no one recognized him at first until David Gilmour realized it was Syd. He quietly sat and listened to Shine On You Crazy Diamond, the song written for him, without showing any clear reaction. Richard Wright later said, "I don't know if Syd understood the song was about him, but the feeling in that room, it was very sad." Though Barrett continued to receive royalties from Pink Floyd, he lived with extreme simplicity, making no investments in music or recording equipment. After his mother's death, he all but severed contact with his siblings, seeing them only when absolutely necessary. Some believe this was his way of protecting the small personal space he had left, keeping far from everything that had once broken him. And in that silence, he became a living legend, not for what he was doing, but for what had been lost, and for the mystery that has never been fully unraveled. Personal life. After leaving Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett was no longer a star in any sense of the word. He returned to Cambridge and lived with his mother in a quiet suburban home, far removed from stage lights and public attention. He never married, had no children, and maintained no long-term romantic relationships, cutting off nearly all social ties outside his family. Neighbors recalled only rare sightings of him, usually walking or cycling to the nearby grocery store. He dressed simply, sometimes wearing a wide-brimmed hat to avoid recognition, and rarely spoke to anyone. If a stranger brought up music, Barrett would often remain silent or change the subject, as though Pink Floyd had never existed. His private world revolved around simple but distinctly artistic pursuits: painting, gardening, caring for koi fish, and reading. Many of his paintings were described by friends as abstract, colorful, and rich in shapes, reflecting the same imagination that had once fueled his surreal songs. Occasionally, he would burn or destroy his work immediately after finishing it, saying they didn't need to be left behind. Within the family, Barrett was affectionate, yet reserved. After his mother's death in 1991, he continued living in the same house, gradually reducing contact with his siblings. His closest bond was with his sister Rosemary, who often visited, cooked, and tended to his health. She once shared, "Roger didn't want to be bothered, but if you sat quietly beside him, he would be more at ease. He didn't need many people, just peace." Barrett no longer played music, nor did he listen to Pink Floyd's albums. Old friends sometimes sent him new recordings or press clippings about the band, but he mostly refused them. It was as if he had locked the door to his past, keeping only what was necessary to live. For Syd Barrett, the remainder of his life was not about creating for others to enjoy. It was about quietly existing in his own private world, where no pressure, expectation, or glare of fame could reach him. Final years. By the mid-1970s, Syd Barrett had withdrawn completely from the music world. No interviews, no comebacks, no participation in any projects. He lived a reclusive life in his small Cambridge home. Day by day, Barrett painted, tended his garden, cared for his koi pond, and occasionally sold a few paintings to close friends. local residents rarely saw him outside, except for occasional trips to the market for groceries or gardening supplies. During this time, Barrett left virtually no trace of his private life. Just the faint image of a quiet man living an ordinary existence, far removed from the genius who had once shaken British rock. His health quietly declined. In addition to type 2 diabetes, the only condition his family later confirmed, Barrett also suffered from stomach ulcers and heart problems. Some believe that due to his long-standing mental instability, he neglected his physical health, allowing his illnesses to worsen. Others suggest he may have been fully aware of his condition but deliberately refused aggressive treatment, choosing instead to live peacefully until the end. A few fans even like to believe that he passed away content, as if he had finally escaped the pressures of fame. On July 7, 2006, Syd Barrett died at his home, aged 60. His family held a private funeral with no public announcement and no media presence. Members of Pink Floyd expressed their condolences briefly, avoiding intrusion into his personal life, just as Barrett had lived in his final decades. After his death, Pink Floyd would often dedicate "Shine On You Crazy Diamond" to his memory during performances. Many music magazines called him the forgotten genius and the first soul of Pink Floyd. Tributes often highlighted a poignant paradox. Barrett's career lasted only a few short years, yet his influence spanned decades, continuing to echo in Pink Floyd's music and imagery, and in the imagination of those still curious about the Mad Diamond who disappeared far too soon from the spotlight. Legacy and influence. Although Syd Barrett's musical career lasted only a few short years, his influence far outlived that brief span. As the founder and original creative soul of Pink Floyd, Barrett shaped the band's entire artistic identity. From its visually rich psychedelic rock style and surreal lyrics to its fearless breaking of contemporary musical conventions. The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, 1967, is still regarded by critics as one of the most important milestones in British rock and a definitive work of 1960s psychedelic music. His two solo albums, The Madcap Laughs and Barrett, 1970, were commercial failures at the time, yet later became cult classics. Rare recordings that offer listeners a deeper glimpse into his fragile but utterly unique inner world. Many later artists, including David Bowie, Mark Bolan, Brian Eno, The Flaming Lips, and Robin Hitchcock, have acknowledged Barrett's influence, not only in music, but in the courage to be different, to live and create entirely on one's own terms. In popular culture, the image of the crazy diamond, the eccentric genius consumed by fame and pressure, is forever tied to Barrett. Pink Floyd dedicated the entire Shine On You Crazy Diamond suite, and much of Wish You Were Here to him, making his name an eternal symbol in the band's history. Critics have called him the first soul of Pink Floyd, the man who opened the door for the band's global conquest, even if he never walked that road himself. More than half a century later, Barrett's songs still play like dreams, beautiful and haunting in equal measure. They not only reflect the rebellious, boundlessly creative spirit of the 1960s, but also serve as a reminder of the price some artists pay for venturing too far into the realm of imagination. For Syd Barrett, his legacy is not in the number of albums or awards, but in proving that music can be a private world, where reality and fantasy merge, and where even a mad diamond can shine brightly long after leaving the stage. Syd Barrett's story is one of the most singular tragedies in British rock history. A genius who laid the foundation for Pink Floyd, opened a new musical dimension, and then vanished almost completely while the spotlight was still blazing. He proved that just a few years can be enough to change the direction of an entire genre and influence generations to come. But his boundless imagination, combined with the pressure of fame and factors only he could truly understand, pushed Barrett out of the very world he once led. For the last 3 decades of his life, he chose seclusion, closing every door to his past. No explanations, no attempt to reclaim the spotlight. Barrett let his music and image speak for him. It was both a refusal and a declaration. Sometimes, peace is not found under the bright lights of the stage, but in the quiet moments of ordinary life. Syd Barrett is gone, but his music remains, in every warped guitar note, in every dreamlike lyric, and in the crazy diamond image immortalized by Pink Floyd. And perhaps the question about him will always linger. Was Syd Barrett a victim of his own glory, or the only one brave enough to walk away from it? The answer, perhaps, is something only he knew, and he took it with him forever. If this story of the crazy diamond has touched you, share your thoughts in the comments and tell us, to you, is Syd Barrett a forgotten legend, or a man who found peace entirely on his own terms?